With our newfound information that Neolantis and Van Carlos was not in the care of Emperor Pilt, we are now discouraged. Thanks to Screams' information, knowing that the local noble Glorio Arcota is the one currently lording over his jail cell time, we head out of Old Corvosa. Screams dragged along and tossed back to the city to do whatever it is he feels like doing. As a short time after, we receive an invitation from, lo and behold, the Lord Glorio. Invited to his manor, we head up that way. After we head in, we're simply stopped by the guards demanding why we're here. Irritated enough as it is, the Greetus demands his way in as invitation by the Lord of the Manor. Escorted into the waiting room, we spend some time waiting. The head butler arrives and checking in on us, providing us snacks and wines, which of course makes the Greetus feel better about himself. And shortly thereafter, Glorio himself arrives. He begins by thanking us for solving the problems over in Old Corvosa. He has been a bit preoccupied with other things to fully commit to solving the problems. Handing us a lovely shining ring of evasion, topped with a beautiful gem. As it heads forward, he formally apologizes that Van Carlos and the Olandis are both trapped in the basement in the labyrinth of torture, but that we are free to retrieve them at our own cost, for he has his own plans to what he wants to do with it. And we graciously appreciate the efforts at least, although the Greetus vocally always announces his own discouragement. Heading down into it, it is a secret trap under a magnificent, let's see, what is an elephant done in hedgework. As we're allowed, we simply don't have to worry about the other problems of the place. Heading deep in, we follow down into the subterranean, eventually leveling out through stairs into an actual cave, upon which mushrooms grow and go. Now, at this point, I don't remember where I got it, but I had a Rod of Wonder. The first round of combat activated, we grew all the vegetation to an extreme size. Large-sized mushrooms, grass everywhere. As we were actually formally stopped by, once again, another circumstance of undead and other creatures, where we run into the loveliness of what's known as garden guardians. And for some reason, they're Skeletal Johnny, which, whatever, we don't pretend like we know why. Smashing them around a bit, we find our way as a downward spiral into a dock. Assumingly, an entrance and exit for those who get imprisoned. Reaching the bottom of it, one side of it reaches into the lovely, I believe it's like a church or something, where there is as we reach the bottom, where there is a giant snake, and what appears to be the loveliness of a Rakshasa. Praying in rage. Walking in, he triggers the look back, seeing us as intruders, or at least a test of strength. Running into combat, going through, traveling down, not thinking too much of it, and I land on the docks. The Greetus looks around as he hears the water bubble and boil, as the biggest reef claw pops out of the water, turning our fight into a two-front fight. Needless to say, the Greetus flees on his own time up higher, begins dropping his Rod of Wonder, and firing fireballs and lightning bolts at it, where he perceivably produces a obscuring mist in there. The barbarian, handling himself fairly well, finally defeats the Rakshasa in combat, dropping him down itself. And which the brief claw turns into his attention, and poof, he vanishes. Returning shortly thereafter, after the Reef Claw has been slain, as real combat began, because the frontline fighter gets poofed. And we head deeper and deeper in, roaming about this now trapped littered circumstance. Roaming about, we hear the skitterings of someone else roaming in it. Or another Rakshasa. This lovely foxy lady decides to come around. She tries to convince us otherwise, but we just not concerned over that problem. It is theirs to sort out, leaving the two to duke it out with each other. Forward we through, we find a lovely room, wrapped with three trapped chests. Noticeably and laughably, we watch someone fall for all of them, two of which just simply have smoke in them, poisoning and poofing out, and the last having a lovely snake in it. One was a symbol of fear. The other was a noxious. I think it was like two symbols, a noxious gas that poofed out with a snake in it, which ironically was hilarious. Oh, right, it was the insanity mist in there. Yeah, it was a double poison trap. Several symbols of pain, fear roam the place. There's not actually a lot to fight in here. A lot of it comes from the obnoxious revolving doors that leads you to spending hours of time looking around. Until we finally run into the guardian of the labyrinth, the Sphinx themselves. Stepping in, we find the struggles of knowing how tough a Sphinx actually is for once, which, great on that part. And we proceedably see the prison cell itself, finding out that there are several wells in there that do a variety of things. One which poisons, one that heals, and she didn't get to either, trying to flee the best she can, just for us to represent and beat her down. Of course, the only one we drank from happens to be the one of healing, so that was convenient. There was an odd trap floor where the room, I think it was like the room of bees or something. I think that's specifically what it's called, where they have the floor and the walls with spikes that stick out of the ground and walls. I think the ceiling also, which representatively makes no sense to how things get struck, but whatever. The force disc I ride around doesn't seem to be that useful at that point. There was a fountain, that upon entering the room, the fountain spins blades around the bottom. Once again, another questionable item that says it hits everything in the room, but whatever justification you want to make to yourself, I guess. The amount of symbols and traps that this place had, and honestly, no monsters, which was kind of a disappointment. Moving on forward, we finally free Van Carlos and Neolantis from the loveliness of being trapped. Beyond that, we enter the room that runs the whole dungeon itself, which is actually managed and moved by mammoths. Bone mammoths, to be specific. Conditioned to move when a bell rings, which is quite impressive considering. We leave them to their eternal suffering of leaving, and we head back up, now allied with Neolandis and Van Carlos, as a new family civil war happens. Thankfully, because of that problem, we don't have to worry too much about fleeing. Heading up back into the city itself, and being finally informed, we're actually leaving the city, where we need to have a cooldown period for our lovely trouble. There actually isn't much for a closing space on this one, mostly in the opener. And it's only a concerning faction if you expose the Rakshasas for who they are. Seeing as how we put down the Rakshasas themselves all into it, doesn't really matter. But all in all, we're going to be heading to the desert. And we're going to have the shenanigans of it because we don't have the barbarian to hang out with. That's a bit in of itself a problem. But for now, I will see you next time. Bye bye!